All right, what's up, ladies and gents? We are back for another YouTube episode. Today is special because we have the one and only Jackson Groff with us today. Now, Jackson was a teammate of mine as well as a classmate of both of ours at the University of Montana. Jackson, how's it going, brother?
Good, bro. Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. Big fan of the brand. Always watch every week. But no, I'm excited to be on here. It's crazy. I mean, it's been what we were just talking about Montana just a bit ago. Like, it's been 2 years since I've been back. It's been a year out since you played. So it's been cool, man. It's been cool to be out here in Arizona and just doing content and studying the game of college football. We all love it so much. So looking forward to talking ball with y'all. Just sucks the season's flying by, but man, this college football playoff is going to be exciting for sure. But no, I'm happy to be on here, man. It's going to be fun.
Good. Yeah, and we're going to ask you in a second here about your background and give the listeners an idea of who you are. Bryce, it's been a second since you've been on too. Let everyone know how hard physical therapy school is and how long it's going to take for you to recover me when I get my knee surgery done here in like 25 years.
We're going to get you back here pretty soon. We'll get you right. Yeah, it's been a busy month and a half, and I'm in the middle of midweek right now and needed a little break. And what's better than sitting here and talking ball with the boys? Especially, I love college football. So as AJ knows, AJ, it's my favorite. I like the NFL. I love college football more.
I agree.
We'll touch on it, but like the whole planting the flag thing, last Saturday, I was glued in the entire time. Loved every bit of it. Like, you don't get that in the NFL. Like that was next to nothing. So,
All right, Groff, let's talk about it. So let everyone know kind of who you are. I already kind of let everyone know how we all know each other. But what you've been up to? I know you're big in the content space. Let everyone know what you've been doing.
Yeah, man. I'll try to give it as short as possible. Long story short, born and raised Phoenix, Arizona. Grew up here my whole life. Was fortunate to have the opportunity to walk on to Montana. That's where I met AJ. Unfortunately, my career was shorter than expected. Being a walk-on, some things happened, whether it was COVID or whatever. Playing time was short, got out of their plans, but luckily for me, I was able to stay around the team, be a student assistant, and me cutting my playing time short opened up for me to start sports broadcasting early. I had the podcast in college, the Groff Show, and then just been kind of just building and building every single year. Graduate from Montana in 2022, fly all the way out here back to Arizona, actually drive back here, long drive, which was, AJ going to Nebraska. I mean, that's a long drive. But, I've been back here. I work part-time at a radio station, but just been fully invested in college football the last 2 years, whether it's, like Bryce said, like watching football on the weekends or literally during the week. Off times, whenever I'm watching Josh Pate, I'm watching Joe Klatt, I'm watching highlights, just whatever it is. I'm just so in love with the sport of college football, just the game behind it. Want to learn. Your book just came out. I'm gonna buy the Veer and Shoot. I just love learning about the sport. That's why we're all here. We love the sport of college football. So, just been doing content forever, and I'm blessed. The last 2 months, this whole year has actually been crazy growth on TikTok, which has been awesome. And I don't know, I'm just a guy that just loves making content, loves talking ball. So I'm not really too much in the hot takes world. I guess a little bit you could say we'll get to in, the college football playoff talk, man. But no, it's been good. God's blessed me. And hopefully you can be one of those Reese Davis, Rich Eisen, Scott Van Pelt guys one day. But that's my little novel of what's been going on, but I won't waste too much time. So
awesome. No, good. I know, dude. I love hearing about, two things. What you said about the whole hot take culture and sports media, that's part of the reason why I started Barber Sports in the first place. I wanted to talk about true, what's really happening in sports, right? And you don't get that a lot in mainstream sports media anymore. And I wanted to talk to people like you who understand that. And then two, you're part of the reason why Barn Burner Sports started a TikTok about 2 weeks ago.
Let's go. Let's go. Dude, it's a grind, man. I tell people all the time, you just got to do it just to love it because you can't be motivated. The first maybe year and a half, it was just me posting. And I'd post once in a while and it would get 200 views. And it's tough. It's tough. When you post something and you take hours, whether it's a podcast or whatever, it takes time. But if you truly love doing it, and even if it doesn't go anywhere, but you love just talking with the boys, like it's fun to watch back on. It's fun to even just talk college football. And nowadays, with everyone's adulthood life, like it's cool just to spend like an hour just to talk college football.
Absolutely.
So no, I agree with you, man. I think the hot takes, like Paul Feinbaum earlier today. I mean, hearing people, we'll get into the discussions about the college football playoff and. I don't know, just super hot takes, outlandish things where it's just like, we just want to talk ball. That's all. We don't want to make this a drama show. And it sucks that alongside other things in the sport, which I'm sure we'll get into, like kind of are tearing the image away from the sport. But luckily, the community is so big. All these fan bases are so huge that I don't think college football is ever going to go to the dust. It's, it is what it is. But yeah. So, man, this sport's awesome. I cannot believe we're so close to the playoff, boys. Let's go, baby.
I know. And so that's the primary thing that we're going to talk about today. College football playoff rankings came out yesterday. We're going to have a full slate of conference championships coming up on Friday and Saturday this week. We're going to start out with our reactions from the college football playoff bracket that came out yesterday. Now, we're recording on Wednesday, so for everyone listening, came out yesterday. But released yesterday, brought a lot of controversy coming out based on what was said by the college football playoff chairman, Ward Manuel. It sounds like a lot of people are locked into the playoff already. One thing that people were debating on was Alabama and them being the 11th seed. But Alabama has 3 losses on the season, one being at Vanderbilt. That was the culmination of Vanderbilt's season. I think that's when they let everyone know that they were going to be the real deal. I don't want to say contenders, but they weren't just going to be another W that you mark on the schedule, right? And then
I think their win total was like 3.5, maybe 2.5. Like when they won that game, you're like, oh, they're going to make a bowl game. Yeah.
Yes. And so that's me and Bryce. We talked about that before the season started. We talked about Vanderbilt and how we love Diego Pavia. He's had a great year this year. But again, with Alabama, they got blown out against Oklahoma. What was it, last week, 2 weeks ago? Yeah, so it was a point of contention when it comes to Alabama. Bryce, what do you think? How do you feel about Alabama being the 11th seed and pretty much getting locked into a playoff spot unless some other things happen here that we'll talk about soon?
So, you can go back to the preseason. I had Alabama to make the playoffs at plus money. I loved the bet at the beginning. I had them over 9.5 wins. And to be frank, I don't like it right now. The last month, what they've done, you look that they've just in the month of November, they played Mercer. That doesn't really move the needle for me. They lost to Oklahoma. Bad. And they played an Auburn team pretty well, but still, I mean, Auburn's so at best. Not a huge fan of it, but then my next option would be Miami. And you look at Miami's 2 losses. Georgia Tech's not bad. And then who was their other?
Syracuse.
This last weekend. They're 2 good teams, but it's you start to measure, and I'm like, you start going I think Oklahoma's probably a worse loss out of that bunch when you're comparing those two, but I don't know. I don't love it right now because they haven't been playing well. I don't think Alabama's been playing well at all. So I think they turned it around a little bit, but
Jax, what you got, buddy?
Yeah, you know who's the happiest out of all this though has got to be Kalen DeBoer, because I feel like they totally forgot about that Oklahoma game. You beat your rival, and then you somehow squeak your way back into the playoff. I mean, for me, I posted a video about it. I was pretty irritated about Alabama, but not even just Alabama getting in. I'm more pissed off that they put Miami over Ole Miss, because I think Miami hasn't played anybody this season. They don't have a ranked win on their schedule. I think their best 2 wins is Louisville and Duke. And that's where the committee and some of the rankings at the bottom, it kind of matters. I think when we watch the playoff show, everyone's just like, all right, give me to the top 12. But you see teams like Missouri at 23. I'm like, how is Missouri still ranked? How is Army and Navy still ranked? I'm a Notre Dame fan. I'm like, how is Army still ranked? We blew Army out. So I think that also plays in a factor. I think ultimately the reason why Ole Miss was cut out, and I think something that you basically, for your schedule, you have to root for everyone to do well in order for you to do well and make the playoff. I think Ole Miss losing to Kentucky and then being 4-8. I saw the stat today. Ole Miss is the only team in the Power Four that Kentucky beat this season, which I thought was berserk.
Wow.
That's the only SEC game they have won. So for me, like I go back and forth. And I think the eye test for me, I'd prefer Ole Miss because I mean Florida was hot when they lost on the road. They lost at LSU, which at the time, night game, Death Valley, tough place to play. I just think that Kentucky loss, I think that's what the committee put in the factor of, for Ole Miss to get out. But in terms of what's crazy, though, is going to be a discussion if SMU loses to Clemson and if they lose badly. Because if they lose badly to Clemson, then you think about Florida State last year, and then you're like, well, is SMU a two-loss team, which they said, conference championships, it's not going to hurt anybody? Or, do we got to put them in? Or do we base it on eye test where, Alabama's just better? SMU hasn't played a ranked opponent. I think their best one's BYU. So, I don't know, man. I'm for the best teams. I'm for the best matchups, but I'm just a little puzzled. I just think it's a big brand is why Bama's at 11. Yeah. But what do you think?
No, I agree. Everything you just said. I think that one of the main issues with these rankings coming out is we don't really know the criteria, right? We don't know what they're going off of. We don't know. I mean, we kind of understand now, but we need to talk about are we paying attention to bad losses? Are we what wins are we talking about here? Because again, like Bryce said, the Alabama beating Mercer in November, that doesn't move the needle for me. All I can think about is, and I saw it on the Pat McAfee show this morning when they were talking about Ward Manuel again, the CFP chairman. He said that if you're not in the conference championship, but you're in the playoff, they don't have another data point to use to rank those teams. So those teams are essentially locked in, which I thought was interesting. Now we need to talk about rewarding teams for playing in the conference championship while also not punishing them for losing it, right? Because now there's probably 2 or 3 teams now that in the college football playoff that could get bumped out based on how they perform this weekend. For example, let's get into it right now. Clemson gets a win over SMU to win the ACC title game. Now, I don't think that SMU. I think SMU stays in the college football playoff with a loss, right? Because you can't go from a first round bye to completely out of the playoffs in 7 days. I think that would set a terrible precedent for the rest of the college football playoff. Because what
if SMU loses by 20? What do you do?
I
agree with you. I think SMU should stay just because it's not fair. But I don't know. You saw FSU last year without their quarterback.
Yeah.
But
I agree. Well,
throughout the year, they've been ranking on by the amount of losses you've had. I think through that past couple of weeks, it's been you've had 2 losses, you had 3 losses, you're going to be ranked a little bit lower. And I think this is the first week, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we've seen a 3-loss team bump a 2-loss team in Alabama being ahead of Miami. So I think that's going back to that criteria is I don't know what they would do with SMU. SMU, I think, deserves to be in it still. They have 1 loss on the road to BYU week 3 when they were still kind of figuring out that quarterback situation with Peyton Stone.
No, I agree. I just think it would set a terrible precedent for SMU. If SMU loses even badly to Clemson in the ACC title game, and then SMU is completely bumped out of the college football playoff, they would have. You're saying that they would have just been better if they weren't playing in their conference championship game. So that de-incentivizes the conference championship game altogether. You're saying that you can get hurt if you lose, but if you don't and you're good enough just to be in contention, just to be in the conversation, then that's better for you. I don't think that's a great precedent to set for the rest of the 12-team playoff.
I think it's so funny how before with the 12-team playoff, we all were in favor of everything. We're like, oh, this is perfect. And then it's the last 2 weeks, everybody's finally seeing the flaws, when the games are in 2 weeks. And everyone's oh, they got to do this, they got to do this. But I agree with you. I think long term, I think the conference championship should just be automatic bids. And then based on their record, based on their strength of schedule, whatever, you rank them and give the top 4 seeds. That's another thing for me about this whole college football playoff. I could be a little biased. Big 12 Arizona State, but I still can't believe Boise State has a first round bye. Like, I don't know. I have a hard time with that. A team in the group of 5 where they haven't played a ranked opponent. Arizona State's played 4 if they beat Iowa State. So there's some flaws to it, but I agree to your point. Like, if SMU gets knocked out, then it's like next year some SEC teams will be like, well, we're going to lose the last game on purpose because I don't want to play in the conference championship to ruin my chances of getting in the playoff. Yeah, you're spot on.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the conversation that Lane Kiffin was having all last week, right? He was talking about why play in the conference championship game if it's going to hurt you. And that's, again, what Emmanuel was saying for the committee. He was like, we're trying to keep the teams that are in their title games this weekend, they're going to stay, is basically what he was saying. Now, the big question is what happens if Boise State loses to NLV, and what happens if Iowa State beats Arizona State? Because UNLV and Iowa State are currently not in the CFP. And if they win, they get bumped up because we're talking about the 5 highest ranked conference champions, right? And I can't imagine, especially with both of these, with Boise State and UNLV being ranked so closely together, and then with Iowa State and Arizona State especially being ranked so close together, I think there's a chance that Arizona State gets bumped out, and there's a chance I don't think Boise State gets bumped out. I think they'll end up being like a 12 seed, maybe something like that if they end up losing. But those 2 games are serious contenders because if Iowa State and UNLV aren't in the playoff, and if they win their conference championships, they'll probably bump up close to being in the playoff, right? Because it's Power 4 plus their group of 5. Somebody's got to go down. And I think, so that's when the conversation starts back up with Alabama. Do they deserve to be in over a team that went to their conference championship and won or lost? I think that's the conversation that needs to happen.
You know how gross it would be, though, if like you look at the top 4 seeds. Like right now, it's Oregon, SMU, Texas, Boise State. Like that's a cool 4. You know, you add Arizona State, Iowa State there. We could have a potential with these. Would be, I think this is the worst situation possible. Penn State, Georgia, Clemson, and then Iowa State, all as our top 4 seeds for the college football playoff as home teams for the New Year's 6 game. Like if I'm a New Year's 6 game and that happens, I got Iowa State as a host game for like the Peach Bowl or for the Cotton Bowl. Like you got to be pretty irritated. But no, I think there's going to be. We always expect this weekend. I think they're all like super narrow spreads. You expect I think it's Texas favored, SMU's favored, Oregon's favored, Boise State's favored. But we've known every week there's so much chaos. So I think that's what's going to be cool to see is the chaos of it and how they reseed like a Penn State. Like you mentioned, they're at 5 right now. They lose to Oregon. Are they going to get bumped under Ohio State, who just lost to Michigan? You know what I mean? Like, and then that beat Penn State, but they played that extra game. So I don't know. There's a lot of flaws inside the system for sure.
Yeah, no, and then another team that we got to look at too is Tennessee. If all that chaos happens that we just talked about, I think Tennessee is going to be on the block, and I think Alabama is going to be on the block.
Just going to throw this out there to you guys. What happens if Georgia loses by 20, or they just get absolutely beat down by Texas, and they're now would they be a 4-loss team?
It'd be a 3-loss.
3-loss. So now you have 4 3-loss SEC teams grouped together.
I don't like it, but I think they're a lock just because their schedule is so hard. But if in a world where they do lose by 20, because they did lose by 20 against Ole Miss, it could happen. But I think they're a lock. I definitely would think that they'd be a road game for sure. I think if they lost by that much, I don't see them having a home game. I think they would. Dude, imagine them going to Indiana. Oh my goodness, Kirby Smart and the boys night game in Bloomington. Oh my goodness.
Man, so at the end of the day, we're about to break down each conference championship here in a second. But I think the 2 teams that need to be on the lookout here are going to be, and they're in the playoff right now as of today, are Arizona State and Alabama. I think those are the 2 teams that should not feel as comfortable as an Indiana or a Tennessee or an Ohio State. Those 2 teams, Arizona State and Alabama, I think those 2 should feel pretty uncomfortable right now because they're not a lock. especially even after what the committee came out and said already. All right, we're starting out with the Mountain West. All right, we've talked about it already. It's basically a pseudo playoff game for UNLV. Boise State and UNLV are matching up for the Mountain West title. UNLV has a chance to sneak into the playoff and possibly get two Group of 5 teams in the playoff based on what Ward Manuel said. That would be insane. Is there a situation where both of them can make it, where Boise State and UNLV can make it? You think so?
I don't think they would ever put the ball.
No, I don't think there's a world where two Group of 5 teams go in. I don't see it. I don't see it.
I think a lot of things would need to happen. It'd be cool. Well, that's the thing, though. So do you just eliminate if let's say UNLV beats Boise State? Does Boise State then go from a first round bye and the 4 seed to out of the playoff? It's the same conversation that we just had with SMU. Yeah, I know they're a Group of 5 team, but again, you look at what Boise State. If you look at the eye test, and I hate the eye test, I do, because I think what you do on the field matters. But Boise State, their one loss this year is to Oregon, and it was a competitive loss, if that's what you want to say. I don't know. I don't think they would hate to do it. There'd be a lot of things that need to happen, but I think they would hate to do it.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be a fun matchup. It's cool to be able to see the Mountain West. I think if you're UNLV too, you got to be able to I think if you win this football game, you got to congratulate Boise State, because I think if Boise State were to have a bad year, and then it's like you get in the discussion of the Mountain West or the AAC. You know what I mean? It's like because of Boise State's success and because of Tulane losing to Memphis, now you have an opportunity to win. I like that this game's in Boise. I thought this game was played at Allegiant Stadium every year for the Mountain West, but maybe they go to home places. Like last year they did it. I think it was Boise State and I'm blanking on the other team, but they won last year. It was at Allegiant Stadium. But no, man, it's gonna be fun. I mean, Ashton Genty, he went to Boise State, could have chose to go anywhere else, stayed there. Obviously, had a hell of a season. I think for me, it's pretty simple for me. I think UNLV, you stop Genty, you win the game. And the other side of things is how can you stop Hodge Malik Williams? Which, looking back on that was the best decision, was Sluka leaving UNLV.
Yes, and that's a whole other conversation when it comes to that.
Made me so mad.
But
they did UNLV in Allegiant Stadium last year. They played UNLV last. It was a 3-way tie, and they did a coin flip. Because remember,
it was UNLV last year.
Yeah, and remember, it was down to Fresno State, Boise State, and UNLV, and they had. I don't know if it was a coin flip, but it was like they had some weird metric or whatever.
Some tiebreaker.
That makes sense. So UNLV was the host team, because I remember Boise State last year, they were I think 3-6 or had some really bad record. And then just the back end of the season, they had the interim head coach. That's their head coach now, just tore it up. But no, I'm glad this is in the blue field, man. I think that definitely plays into an advantage, because the fact that Boise State could win on the road like that against UNLV. I mean, UNLV played Syracuse before, so they had some type of and they played Kentucky or Kansas, I should say, too. So they played some of those Power 4 teams. I guess you could say Boise State did against Oregon, but no, I think them being at Boise State, I'm surprised the spread, I think it's only 3. I'm surprised it's not a bigger spread because it's in Boise.
I agree. And Jackson, like you said, the entire game plan for UNLV defensively anyway is going to be stopping Ashton Genty. And we're going to talk about Hesiman at the end of the show. So we'll get into that later. But with Boise State's quarterback, Maddox Madsen, he has had a pretty underrated season, I think. Now you can easily say he has Ashton Genty. They're putting 9 guys in the box every play. Yeah, a quarterback should be able to be efficient and make some throws. It's easy to say that, but then you actually got to do it. And he's been awesome. He leads the Mountain West in touchdown passes, and he's only thrown 3 interceptions on the year. Right? He has taken advantage of what defenses are doing with Ashton Genty, and he's been doing it all year. So I believe if UNLV is going to do what we all think they're going to do and try to load the box and make Maddox Madsen beat them, I still think Boise State has a chance. They're favored for a reason, not only because it's on the blue turf, but I think the quarterback play and the O-line play has been awesome this year.
Yeah, 100%. I think too, for UNLV's perspective, I don't know if they can really run the football, and that's one thing with them. It's I feel like they have to run the football up the middle, which will open up with Hodge Malik Williams. Get Ricky White involved. He's a stud wide receiver. I know he's happy because his numbers have been up since Luka. But I think you made a good point about Madison. The best part about Madison too, bro, is he does not turn the ball over. He's only got 3 interceptions this year. So it's like, and that game against UNLV, he had some critical throws, 4th and goal, scrambled with his legs, and he beat out the 5-star Malachi Nelson that was supposed to be the starter coming in. So, no, I'm glad though for the Mountain West. Like we have another game here that's CFP or die for both teams. Yeah, man. How about Boise State, man? We knew heading into the season they were going to be a good team. They were going to be dominant, but what Genty's done, dude, it's just like, I know we'll get to the discussion in a bit, but like you've got to just be in awe of a guy like this, and you're excited for him to go to the playoff and see who they play and see if they can continue to run too. So
truly, I mean, you look at Genty's game. I mean, what I hate is people only look at Ashton Genty and they look at the logo that's next to his name and say it's Boise State. It's a Group of 5 team. Go look at his game against Oregon and tell me he's not the best player in the country. Like I don't get it. But going to UNLV and their offense, I love what Brennan Marion does. Brennan Marion is their offensive coordinator. He needs to be in discussion for a head coaching job here pretty soon because everywhere he has been, he has had explosive offenses. He truly, like he was at Texas for a while. He was their wide receivers coach and passing game coordinator. That he kind of kickstarted the whole deal with Ewers and Sarkisian over there. His style of offense is different. He's a Gus Malzahn disciple, right? So a lot of his stuff is old school, implemented within the spread. You're going to see a lot of formations. He's going to get into different unbalanced sets, multiple backs, the whole thing with 2 backs on the same side of the quarterback. He invented that, which is awesome. He's going to use play action, get the ball down the field. Run game is diversified. You brought up the Rebels. You brought up their run game. Now they don't have a 1,000-yard rusher this year, but they have. I'm looking at it right now. They have 3 guys over 500 yards in the season. Their second leading rusher is going to be Malik Williams, who was a stud. Was he at he was at Mercer last year?
Campbell.
Where was he at? Campbell. That's right. They're both orange.
Campbell's
orange. I know. So I think they're going to be a problem. I think they're going to end up being one of the best offenses that Boise State has seen so far this season. And I think Brennan Marion is going to have some tricks up his sleeve to take advantage of what Boise is going to try to do on defense. Bryce, what you think? I see your eyes darting around. You must be thinking about something.
Yeah, no, I'm digging in over here. I'm digging in over here for sure. Going in the beginning of the week, I originally looked at UNLV and I said, it's hard to play a team twice in the same year, especially in football. I think that's I think that's a hard thing. Something I was going to ask you. You have had, or I guess you weren't a part of that 2019 team that played Weber State back to back. A couple weeks apart. I think it's very difficult. Very, very difficult. I love UNLV's offense. But I can't go against Genty. And I also think it's just been kind of this like little Cinderella run for Boise State all year. And it's just been kind of expected from the beginning, and they've held expectations. They should have beat Oregon at the beginning of the year. That was a very close game. I mean, Oregon was holding on for dear life throughout the whole thing.
Oregon, like it seemed like they jogged into the season. They had the scare with Boise, and then they had the scare with Idaho.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. And even like Boise's battle tested, like watching them play San Jose State. I like not too battle tested, but they got down early and they fought back, and then they ended up covering a 20-point spread by the end of the game. So I mean, take what you want with that, like. They're able to come back. I really want to say UNLV because I love their offense. I love Malik Williams, but I got to go with Boise. At the end of the day, I'm probably going to roll with too.
Yeah, I'm looking at their matchup because I do remember watching this game. I'm looking at their box score from their matchup earlier this season. Going into halftime, it was 20-10. Boise State. Boise State had a rough time in the second half scoring. They didn't end up scoring until Ashton Genty saved them in the fourth quarter to put them up 29-24. So,
Genty struggled in that game too. Like they started out. He started out like with like 50 yards at halftime, which we all know Ashton Genty. That's a bad number. Yeah.
It was his lowest rushing total of the season. He had which is it was 128 yards, but he averaged less than 4 yards a carry. He had one touchdown. His one touchdown was late in the beginning of the fourth quarter to finally put him up. And so I think this is going to be a closer game than a lot of people think. I think UNLV has an understanding of what Boise wants to do because a lot of what Boise does, it's zone, right? And if I remember correctly, UNLV kind of uses a 3-man front. They're a 3-3, 3-4 style of defense. If they can control the line of scrimmage and take advantage of the angles that the O-line is using on the zone game, it could be an issue. And they showed it already. They showed it already earlier in the season. And like Bryce said, it's hard to beat a team twice. But this is going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a shootout.
It's a great Friday night game to have. Like I'm
excited
it's on Friday night. Like that's a great time slot for this. Another thing, and you have it in the notes. I don't remember because I remember watching that game, but I don't remember seeing him on special teams at that time. I also it wasn't on my radar. Ricky White is a special teams weapon. And that's something that that's going to be an X factor. Like if he gets one block punt, that flips the field, and that's that could be a key. That's a somewhat of a special teams edge towards UNLV.
Yes,
they have because he is so good at that. Get the biggest, fastest wide receiver to go block a punt. I don't know why this is the first time I've ever thought about that and being oh, that is a good idea.
Yes. No, so not only is he by far their best receiver, he's the only 1,000-yard receiver on the team. He for the majority of the season, he had more blocked punts than the rest of the country, than any other team. Him as an individual had more blocked punts than any team. It was insane. So he's coming into this game with 3. You're right. I think if UNLV wants to get a jump on Boise, a blocked punt was going to be huge. Now, it's been a minute. He's almost got a couple the past couple of weeks. I remember watching a couple of UNLV games. He's been close. But if they can scheme it up somehow to where he can get free on a punt and block one, that'll be huge for UNLV. With that being said,
it's insane to
go for it.
About a 1,000-yard wide receiver, almost leading the country for a good majority of the year in block punts, though. That's just
incredible.
It's cool.
And he's so good at it too, and you're just like, what?
Yeah, no, I agree. I have it written down in the notes, like you said. He's going to be the X factor on special teams for them. Not like I said, not only is he the best receiver, he's their guy on special teams. He has a punt return for a touchdown too, I think.
Yeah, he's going to be playing on Sundays for sure.
Yes,
he's
really so good. With all that being said, who do you guys think pulls it out?
I got Boise State. I think they win by 10. I'm going 31-21. I think this being at night at Boise State, I don't think UNLV is ready for what Ashton Jetty's been doing the last couple of weeks. And I know it's tough beating a team twice. They've been in this position. They won the Mountain West Championship last year. But I also feel like this coaching staff, like you mentioned with UNLV, was it UNLV or Boise State? Or you said UNLV's offensive coordinator. But I think Boise State's really well coached too. I'm going to go 31-21. I hope Devin Gardner – I know it's on Fox. I hope Devin Gardner's calling. I don't know if you guys have ever heard Devin Gardner on the call. Dude, he gets so amped. And him with Tim Brando, I'm like, it's an underrated Friday night crew. So I think they win by 10.
Bryce,
he was the same guy that did the Maryland
– No, you're good.
Call. Who was that the other week where he said, "Oh no, it's a disaster"? Who was that call the other week? I'll have to pull up that video when Maryland fumbled the ball against USC. That was a great call.
It's like it sounded like the Charlotte Hornets broadcaster.
I know what you're talking about.
And it was almost close to the end of halftime, and I was like, man, I'm middle of 2:00 on a Saturday, with the quad box on, what is going on up there?
That's so funny.
Going back to the game, I'll do a little barn burner bets throw in here. Boise State wins outright. UNLV covers. I got 4.5 here. I'll take the 4.5 with UNLV. I think it's tough to beat a team twice. I think they'll keep it close. I think Genty's going to be too much for him, though. And like I said, I think it's just too much of a Cinderella run for Boise State. I think it's going to be cool. Growing up, living in Montana, Boise State was we always talked about Boise State. They were always in the talk in the country. So it's kind of cool seeing them back. back in the limelight there. So I'll go back with Boise State here.
So if they win, they'd play in the Fiesta Bowl. Like, doesn't that just give you chills a little bit? Like, seeing them back in the Fiesta Bowl, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I also hope they win. It's like it's like either Arizona State or Boise State could be the host team here. Like, that'd be so cool. Boise State,
that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Yeah, so I'm gonna do the college game day, and we're gonna have all three Boise State graphics here. I think it's gonna be a closer game. I think it's gonna end up being something around 31-28. I think UNLV's offense is really good. I think Ashton Jeanty, even though he ended up getting hurt last week or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember. He got banged up a little bit. Still ran for like 200 yards. Doesn't matter. I think Ashton Jeanty's gonna have a great game. I think he's going to be pissed off that he had his lowest rushing total against these guys. He's going to will this team to a Mountain West Conference championship, and he's going to will them to a first round bye. 31-28 is going to be.
Also, under this, I also think that there's got to be part of him that thinks that like this is his last chance to kind of sell to Heisman voters.
Absolutely, 100%.
And I think that's also kind of like for the Boise State staff as well to like kind of like it's their.
I agree. I agree.
That pad there because we saw last week Colorado did that for Travis Hunter. And so, this is their time for Jeanty. So
I agree.
That's interesting you said that because the deadline to vote is on Monday. So
this is the last week of games. This is the last week of games until voters have to send in their ballot.
And most
end up waiting until the last minute, I think.
Yeah, and they always say, like, the conference championships don't affect anything. And I get Caleb Williams had a hell of a season. Was it Caleb or was it Jaden Daniels? I don't know. But Max Duggan losing the Big 12 championship, I think, cost him an opportunity to win the Heisman. Yes. I think that was Caleb Williams that year. Yeah, and then Bo Nix losing to Washington kind of hurt him against Jaden Daniels. But I was going to say, last thing, we always talk about the recovery of, like, what Travis Hunter has to do after games. I want to know what Ashton Jeanty has to do. Like, I know he's big, but, like, dude, this guy gets the ball 60 times a game, and he's still getting hit. Like, the fact that he's still – it's insane.
So, I was just going to say, the thing is, he's not that big. I think he's – I'm looking at
it's like my height, right? Is he 5'9"?
I think he's listed at 5'9". He's not that
he's
big.
Probably 5'6". Yeah.
He's just
5'7".
He's just rocked up. He's just rocked up, dude. I mean, the things that he has to do, you're right. I can't imagine what he has to do. I mean, he gets 30 carries a game. He's the whole offense. It's unreal. All right, moving on into the Big Ten. Now, I think there's a few championship games in here. Really, the only two that don't have a ton of implications are the next two that we're going to talk about here. So we're going to talk about the Big Ten. We have Penn State at Oregon, or not at Oregon, but versus Oregon in the Big Ten title game. Both teams are apparent locks for the CFP. At this point, it just matters in terms of standing and where you're seated at in the bracket. Oregon, to me, has looked like the best team in the country the entire season. Besides those first couple games at the beginning of the season, ever since then, they have looked like the best team in the country.
Yeah, I think they're the most balanced, too. Like, receiver-wise, 100%. They've got two threats on the outside. Tez Johnson, thank God he's not out for the season. He had that little injury against Michigan. And then Evan Stewart, you were just wondering when that game was going to come, when he showed out against Ohio State vertically. I think there's two battles I'm looking forward to, and it's both involved with Oregon's offense and Penn State's defense. The first one, you're going to like this, AJ, is the O-line of Oregon versus the D-line of Penn State. Penn 100%. State's got the best front seven, which heading into the season we thought Ohio State was. They've been kind of inconsistent. I would give the title to Penn State personally with Abdul Carter sitting on the other side. Like, Abdul Carter is going to be a top 5 pick. And you got Josh Connerly as the tackle. So that's a fun matchup to watch out for. And I think this DB core is super slept on for Penn State. And I know the wide receivers are going to go crazy. Like, they're loaded at receiver. They got 2 tight ends. Like, they can beat you in any type of way. But I think for Dylan Gabriel, if he has one of those throws where we saw, I think at Michigan State, he had 2 red zone picks. He had a pick against Ohio State. If there's an opportunity for those Penn State guys to catch the football, they're going to catch it. And I think if Oregon does throw a red zone interception inside, obviously the red zone or whatever, Penn State's got to play into advantage. But for me, those are two matchups. Like, Oregon's offense versus Penn State's defense, I feel like it's going to set this game because if Penn State's offense gets out and struggles like they did against Ohio State, Penn State's got to get some type of momentum, and they may have to even score a touchdown to help aid their offense against Oregon. So,
yeah, absolutely. Bryce, what you think, man?
going back to the beginning of the year, I think we had a conversation, one of the first few pods, that I thought Penn
Yeah.
State was almost a lock to lose their first round home playoff game, that I see James Franklin being the first home playoff coach to lose his first home playoff game. I don't trust Penn State, and I also don't trust James Franklin in games like these. I think that they are stacked, they're loaded. I've just seen him lose too many games like this. I also think Oregon's like they've had a few bumps. Wisconsin, that was a tight game.
That was really tight.
Yeah.
Really tight. But Dan Lanning just figures out, guy's a psycho. He figures out ways to get these guys motivated. I'm glued into the videos every single week that he's gonna find a way to like get these guys motivated against a Penn State team. And I'm not worried. I'm confident Oregon's gonna win. I'm not too worried about Penn State. I think like the coaching match, like the coaching disparity to me is just a little too wide. That's my own personal opinion, and that's just because I don't trust James Franklin.
Bryce, you're a betting guy. When I saw this was 3.5, I was like, I was shocked it was a 9.5, 10.5. Like the fact that it's 3.5, I'm like, is this something that we don't know about Penn State, or is it like them respecting the rankings of Penn State? Because to me, I thought Oregon would be like a 9-point favorite.
When you brought up about 9 points, because when I heard that it was going to be Penn State, I was thinking it was going to be like that Oregon Washington spread last year, like 9.5, 10, where it's going to dip back and forth all week between those two. Because what has Penn State shown, like in these big games, for us to be like, yeah, like we're going to rock with them? Like they had Ohio State at home this year, and like they look like they usually do against Ohio State. They struggled. They should have lost to Minnesota a couple weeks ago. Like, I don't think anybody really brought that up. Like, that's kind of like slid underneath the radar. I don't know what happened that week as well.
Well, that was the weekend. Sorry to interrupt, but that was the weekend when it was like 7 upsets in the same day. Like that was Alabama and Ole Miss losing. So like no one even remember. To your point, no one even looked at Penn State winning by 1 and having a fake field goal and like 2 fourth down conversions at the end to ice out that game against Minnesota. Yeah, you're right.
They needed every single bit to beat. Like Minnesota's like a good team. They're not great, but like they needed everything to beat Minnesota. Like I said, Dan Lanning's a psycho. He'll get these boys ready. And other than I don't know, Boise State, like they've just been on this like upward trajectory throughout the year where it's just like we're just gonna beat some teams into the ground. So
yeah, no, I love the video with Dan Lanning talking to his team about them using jump around at Wisconsin to fuel their, because people forget that they were down by 7 at that point in the game, and then they basically used jump around as a nice little kickstart to come back. So I mean, I love that guy. Dan Lanning is awesome. He's definitely a coach that I would love to play for.
This is a man that called a timeout at Michigan when they were
going to say that,
to let his players watch the fans walk out. Maniac behavior, but like if that's my coach, I'm like, this is awesome. Like,
could you imagine if Halk at halftime just smashed the helmet of the rival at halftime?
I just saw that too. That is insane.
Dude, how does that not fire you up in the second half? Which a game that they control. Like I could see him do that against Idaho, maybe Montana State. Maybe we could win on the road if he smashes the helmet at halftime. But who knows? Who knows? But you're right. I feel like nowadays in college football, in order to be great, you have to be a little psychotic. And that's the little stuff. It's amazing how he has that much creativity to do it week by week. It's unreal.
And I saw someone they said it on Twitter today, whatever the two. I don't
Twitter.
He sets up a story every single week throughout the week. And like you could see it in the documentary of like, this is what we're gonna do. And then he does it. And I'm just like, this is insane. Yeah. Like he is a like true psycho, and I love it. And they're just another team, like you guys said, they're well balanced. And just I don't trust Penn State. Like I don't know what it is. Like as much as I would love to like throw them in a round robin with a bunch of other underdogs that I like and be like, hey, like, you know, we'll play it, but I don't think it's gonna hit. So I'm like, I'm good. Like I don't see it. So
no, I think for me, the investment in watching this game, it's going to be, I mean, obviously it's the Big Ten title game, so people are going to watch it, but both teams are likely going to make the playoff. It's just a matter of seeding. So that takes away, and from a fan point of view, it takes away from the game a little bit. But I do think Oregon is going to end up beating the piss out of Penn State this weekend. I do.
What was your guys' national championship picks before the season? Do you guys remember, or did you guys do one? Or
Oh, we did. Let me see if I can find it.
That's a good question. I don't even remember.
the only reason I know mine, I don't mean to flex. I picked Oregon, Texas before the season, and I remember when Oregon first started off, everyone was like, "Oh, they're starting out bad against Idaho and Boise State," and then, dude, they switched their offensive line, and they just have not looked back. And I think it's unreal. Like, I mean, today is National Signing Day when we're recording this on a Wednesday. I don't know if you guys saw on your phone the entire day. All I was seeing was Oregon, flipped to Oregon,
5-star,
committed to Oregon, 5-star, 4-star. Like, what he's built, I never thought. When was the last time we've seen a dominant force in the West Coast? Like USC days with Pete Carroll. Like the fact that he's doing this and it's an SEC built program on the West Coast. Like this Oregon team, man. Like I think every year we're going to see them at the top. And I think you're right. Like they're just building and building and building. And Jordan James, one of the most underrated players. I hope he gets more attention during the playoff because that dude's phenomenal at running back. Kenyon Sadiq, kind of like that Cole Grossman for Montana, where you can have him on those jet sweeps. You can kind of have him, in the middle of the field or what type of route tree. He's got unlimited options. But I think you guys are right. I got Oregon winning by 10, 27-17. I think they win easily. Yeah. I do think it's kind of crazy how the ticket price is $20 to get in. Like if I'm living in Indianapolis, I would go to this game just to go.
We can't even do a Grizz game for $20.
Probably can't get in a parking lot for $20.
Yes. I cannot find it. I know I did bet Georgia to win at the beginning of the year. To win it all. I thought that there was going to be too much. Not feeling too confident about it now.
They still could. They're just so inconsistent. Yeah.
We'll get to it next. I don't know if this helps segue.
So I was just going to say, I'm looking at our – I'm sorry. I was just going to say I'm looking at our outline and our note sheet from our college football preview, Bryce. I can see you're on it too. But I don't see specifically where we talked about possible national championship matchups, but you had talked about down on Texas this year, which is funny in hindsight. But which at this point in the year, back before the season started, that was understandable. And then we did talk. I do remember.
I had Florida State.
I talked big about Oregon.
I had Florida State as my second ranked team in the ACC at the beginning of the season. So I just want to put that out there. Like we all had mistakes this year. Like
yes,
it's so tough.
Sorry. Go for it, Bryce.
You're good. You're good.
So just talking about F ups before the season, thinking about who was going to be good and not. I thought UCF was going to be a contender, and
I was there with you though.
I thought KJ Jefferson was going to be a dark horse Heisman pick. So that just shows how crazy the season went this year. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think Texas was going to get to 10.5 wins. I mean, it was still technically kind of in play there at the end of the year with Texas A&M, because I thought they were going to drop to either Georgia, Red River, Michigan, or Texas A&M. Michigan ended up just being, Texas A&M, I don't know what happened to them at the end of the year. I thought they would put up a little bit more of a fight than what they did last week.
And we did end up talking about Iowa State being the team to come out of the Big 12 though. We did talk about that.
Wow,
we were on that.
We do. We had the Big 12 down besides UCF. We talked about USC and Oregon being in the Big Ten. I remember me talking about Oregon being a national championship contender. It wasn't too hot on USC. And then what else do I have on here?
Dude, everything
else was.
I had Iowa State 10th before the season, and I had ASU 11th.
There you go.
Incredible. That's incredible. That's and in the Big Ten itself, I had Oregon, Ohio State. I had Penn State 3. I feel like the Big Ten is like, and we could talk about. I'm curious what you guys think about it. Is SEC's obviously 1, Big Ten's 2, but like, can we all agree like? Besides like 3 or 4 teams, the Big Ten's pretty garbage right now. Like I get it's like tough, hard-nosed football, but like in terms of like conference depth, I don't know. Big 12, I feel like it's not that far off from the Big 10.
Yeah, no, Big 10 is extremely top-heavy, and I think that top-heavy being national championship contenders every year I think that's what boosts the stock of the Big Ten every year. But me and Bryce talked about it before the start of the season. We thought the Big 12 was going to be the funnest conference in football this year. And I think we were right. I mean, we're coming down to the last week of the season and we're trying to figure out who's going to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all right, let's get back on track here. SEC championship game. No, that was fun. I just want to make sure.
Who do you think's going to win the Big Ten? You didn't say your Big Ten prediction. You go last. Yeah.
Oregon.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's going to be double. It's going to be a double-digit win. I think. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Penn State. I think if Penn State wants to win this one, I don't think they're going to be able to. But if they are, the defense has to step up, and they're going to have to make Tyler Warren have to have a big game. Tyler Warren's an awesome story. If you guys don't know any listener that doesn't know who Tyler Warren is, go check that dude out. The dude's a football player. All right, so going to the SEC championship game, we got Georgia and Texas. Kind of a similar situation with Penn State and Oregon. I think both of these teams are probably locks for the college football playoff. Georgia less so than Penn State because Georgia would then be a 3-loss team going into the SEC, but they are playing in their conference championship game, and based on what we've heard, conference championship likely isn't going to hurt you. So, Georgia and Texas. Georgia has shown that they are incredibly beatable this year. They are not the Georgia. They are not the Georgia of old. What do you guys think?
Like I said a couple minutes ago, I had bet a Georgia ticket earlier this year. I thought their depth was going to be off the charts. I thought, in like a 12-team playoff that was eventually going to show up, and it still might show up. We might, yet to be seen. The 7 overtime or 8, 7, whatever.
8 overtimes.
Yeah.
8 overtime?
8 overtimes that it was last week against Georgia Tech does have me concerned because they are Georgia Tech. A Georgia Tech decision of giving Haynes King the ball in overtime and letting him run
the ball, man. Why are we going empty on the 2-yard line? We didn't do that the whole game.
And they would have lost. Haynes King had the day of his life all day, and they could not stop Haynes King.
Oh,
and then
I was texting the boys in the group chat, and we were like 3 overtimes in. And I was just like, Haynes King on the ball. King on the ball. Why are they not giving Haynes King the ball? Motion, formation shift, something. Give him the ball.
At least put him out on the run where it's like you got a threat to throw and run the football. Yes. They didn't do anything. Yeah. It was just like, all right, let's go 5 wide against Georgia, which, yeah. No, I agree with you, Bryce. I mean, this Georgia team at their best, I mean, they can beat anybody. But at their worst, like, that Ole Miss, with them losing to Ole Miss, like, I don't know what to think about this Georgia team. But then you think of the SEC championship being at Georgia, yeah, that was a really bad loss. Dude, I mean, then the biggest thing for me with Georgia, and I get Carson Beck gets a bunch of blame. Like, the interceptions he had against Texas, a lot of those receiver drops. He had some really bad interceptions against Ole Miss. But I just think in general, the offense is just in all sorts right now. Like, they've had offensive line injuries. Trevor Etienne might not play in this game. Like, they're not your typical ground and pound team. And, like, of recent, they finally used Oscar Delp, which was supposed to be the next Brock Bowers, which now you see in the NFL, like, you can't really replace a Brock Bowers. So I think them utilizing the tight ends definitely helped them with Carson Beck because I think he just needs that security blanket. They don't really have the dynamic guys on the outside. So I just think this Georgia offense is just weird. But, like, they somehow win football games against Georgia Tech. But I wonder against Texas, like, this to me, it's going to come down to Texas's offense versus Georgia's defense because I don't think the way Texas's defense has been playing right now, I don't really think if Georgia's having these offensive lows, I don't think it's going to be like this last time when they played because I was at that game. And to me, the only reason why Georgia scored was because they started the whole first half. Like every touchdown or field goal they had was like in Texas's like 30-yard line, 10-yard line, 20-yard line. Like they didn't have to drive the field at all the entire game. So it's going to be interesting to see, man.
I think we're going to see 2 big things this game. We're going to see, one, how good this Texas team really is this year because they played Georgia earlier, got beat down. They haven't really played that many like other formidable opponents. For a while there, UL Monroe was like a solid team that they had on their schedule. And the other thing is it's going to be how good of a game plan that Sark can draw up against Kirby Smart. Because I trust Kirby. and it's going to be to see how Sark adjusts the second go around here. And like we were talking the same thing with UNLV Boise State. It's hard to beat a team twice. I don't know how I feel about Sark. I know I can trust Kirby, but like Groff was saying, this Georgia team has been like ebbs and valleys all year, and it's like Carson Beck's been that all year. Like you don't know what you're going to expect. Even in the Alabama game, like it was insanely low in the first half, and they came back, they still lost, but it was like, what is going on with these guys? Like very uncharacteristic what they've been the last 3 to 4 years. So those are my two things that I'm going to be like most locked in on, are like, how does Sark come ready for this team? Mainly. So.
Yep. No, I agree. I think both of these teams, Georgia specifically, Texas, it's been hard to get kind of a gauge on. They at one point they were playing like the best team in the country. And
I was going to ask you that, AJ. Like, what are your guys' thoughts on Texas? Because like with the amount of talent they have, they should be as dominant every game as Oregon is. But it's like they're not. You haven't seen that since Michigan, which we know how Michigan panned out. But it's like even the Texas A&M game where they're up 17-7. The 2 red zone turnovers obviously cost them the game. But then after that, it was like – or not cost them the game, but they won by 10. But after that, they couldn't get things going offensively. It's just like, I don't know. This team's so talented, and maybe last year was the same thing with them too. But I feel like we should be dominating teams with how much talent they have offensively.
And they're not.
And they're not. Yeah. Yeah, they're not.
No, so that's why I'm gonna pick Georgia for this game. Now they're coming off an emotional win over Georgia Tech in that 8 overtime game. Like Bryce was saying, I trust Kirby Smart more than I trust Sark at this point. And I think that Georgia's offense can be good enough to compete with Texas's defense. But I think Georgia's defense is going to be superior to what Texas does on offense. I think that's going to be the key thing, is how well does Texas's offense do against Georgia's defense? Because Georgia's defense has been fine all year. They have been the Georgia of old. That offense is not. They haven't had an identity. They haven't figured out how to run the ball. The passing game has been up and down all year, like we've been talking about for the last 15 minutes. I think Georgia is going to pull off the upset over Texas because I trust that defense more than I trust Texas's ability to compete with that defense. And I think Georgia's offense is going to be just good enough to be able to put points on the board and outscore Texas. That's what I think.
I also think the super interesting thing, like reflecting back to that game, whenever it was a month and a half ago, is they quick pulled the Quinn Ewers at such a strange time and just threw Arch Manning in. And I remember thinking that was such a weird decision in the moment. And I don't know what that decision was at the time. And that's like, I've always had that in the back of my mind when I think about Sark, is like, I didn't understand that at the time. And I know Arch had a play last week where he scored. And I'm assuming that was probably a little bit more designed, I believe. That being said, I thought that was weird. I thought it was like kind of a panic move. I don't trust Sark more than I do Kirby. I got to go with the national championship coach. So he'll have those boys thinking that they're like 6-8. So.
Groff, the surprise in your voice makes me feel like you're picking Texas here.
I am picking Texas. I think it's like you guys mentioned. It's hard to beat a team twice. I'll save the board. I'm hoping and praying, just because against when I was at the Texas Georgia game, like Texas's offensive just passing game, they never really stretched the ball down the field vertically at all. Like I think Quinn Ewers, like you mentioned him getting rattled and him getting pulled out, Bryce being Arch coming in. I think part of that had to do with that corner blitz just absolutely nailing him, that fumble he had like inside the 5. So for me, Quinn Ewers did look calmer against Texas A&M even when he turned the ball over. I'm banking on the fact that they did challenge Texas A&M vertically more. Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond's been injured, which has been a bummer for this receiver group, but they're just so deep. If they can run the football, I think they can beat Georgia easily. Not easily, I should say. It's freaking Georgia. But if they can run the football, they had 27 carries, 29 yards against Georgia last time, which ended up having them only 2 of 15 on third down, which, I mean, AJ, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10 is way harder than 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, which they've got speed on the perimeter. So I'm going to bank on the fact that Texas can figure it out a little bit, and I'm going to trust. And I do wonder, too, how Arch Manning gets implemented, because he did play some against A&M and him using his legs. And I don't know about you guys, but it just seems like the energy around the team when Arch is in versus Quinn is in is just completely different. I don't know if it's because they're kind of tired of Quinn Ewers and they want to see some change, or it's good to see a quarterback that can move versus maybe a quarterback in Quinn Ewers that can't right now with his ankle. But it just seems like the team rallies around Arch. But you're right, Bryce. Like, if they do take out Quinn and put Arch in, like, Arch didn't do that well against Georgia, which I think part of that was because the offensive line got bullied. But you do wonder, like, if that's going to affect things moving forward if he does pull Quinn. So I'm going Texas 27-23.
I think, honestly, honest to God, I think my thoughts might change if Arch started the game.
Ooh.
I think my thoughts would change about that. I'm excited. Looking forward, so I completely understand what you're saying, and I agree with you that I think the energy around the team feels a lot higher when Arch Manning is out on the field. And we're not in the locker room. Obviously, we have no idea what's going on. But it does. It feels like there's an energy shift on the sidelines and in the stadium when Arch Manning is out on the field. And I'm really looking forward into the next season. I'm super excited to see what they do with him next year.
My thing with Arch is we haven't seen him throw in, like, pressured situations. Like, we've only seen him pass like against, like, UL Monroe, Chattanooga, like, I don't know, insert blank FCS team. Like, so that's my thing when pressure comes to him. Like, can he step up and make those critical throws? My last thing I'll say about Arch is when I was at that Georgia-Texas game, I think it was louder when they yelled for Arch coming in, when they screamed, and just happiness with him coming in over when the team entrance the game. Like, when they entered the game, I think it was louder when Arch Manning was in, which was crazy. But yeah, man, I mean, if for long-term success though for the college football playoff, like, no team is suited better with depth than Texas. Like, the fact that you have Arch Manning just in your bag, like, imagine Georgia losing Carson Beck. Like, it could improve, actually, because he's a turnover machine. But, like, Penn State losing. I think Purdue actually has been better. I'm trying to think of a team, but long story short, like, you need depth in the playoff. Like, if you don't get a first-round bye, you have to win 4 games to win the Natty. That's insane.
Yes. Yeah,
ridiculous.
You're essentially playing a full NFL regular season to win the national championship.
Dude, the Natty's January 20th. Like, I was talking to John on the podcast. Like, dude, there's like 10 days in between. Like, thank God NFL playoffs are going on at the same time. But it's like you're gonna forget that there's college football on, and it's like it starts December 21st. It ends January 20th. You started your season out in September. Like, that's so long. But I'm all for it. 12 teams is what it needs to be. I'm all for it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think 12 teams is where it needed to be. Four was too exclusive. Like, can you imagine what we would be talking about right now with the 14 playoff?
That's what I was going to bring up earlier. It feels so much better to be arguing about 12 and 13 than it does 4, 5, and 6. Yeah. I think it's easier to argue about 12, 13, 14 than it is to argue.
And here's the other thing. If it was just if we didn't have the 12-team playoff framework in place where we have the 4 highest conference champions with a first-round bye, do you think Boise State is going to be the 4th ranked? Would be the 4th seed in the college football playoff? No, they would still be going off the eye test. I think with the 12-team playoff, we can focus on what is going out on the field. I think that is the most important part. I hate the eye test argument. I hate it because why would you play the game? Why else would you play the game? And so I don't know. That's my little soapbox right there.
Do you guys? I'm a Notre Dame fan. Do you guys think Notre Dame makes the Final Four if it was a 14 playoff? I don't think they do, but thank God for the 12 team because they get in as like the 5 or the 6. If it was the 14 playoff, it would be interesting. I think it'd come down to Oregon, Penn State. Like, if Penn State beats Oregon, they both get in. Oregon doesn't get kicked out, and then you got Texas, Georgia. Like, that 4. Thank God we're going. Like, this is the perfect timing for the 12-team playoff, I feel like. Thank God. It would be worse.
If you're a Notre Dame fan,
I found another ally. I'm a big Notre Dame fan, too. Love Notre Dame.
Let's
I
go.
fight for my life in the in our group chat. That
Well,
NIU game was brutal. The Marshall game was brutal. I was fighting for my life. We're gonna have we'll say this is a Notre Dame segment, right?
dude, Northern
They don't have a
Illinois.
conference championship, so we'll make this the Notre Dame segment, Groff. Riley Leonard has finally turned it around and was like the quarterback that I thought
Thank you.
that we were going to get. I was really nervous for the first like probably 5 games this year where I was like, he can't throw, like he can run, but we're not having any passing touchdowns. Like this is ugly. We just lost to NIU. Like what is going on? Like somehow we miraculously beat Texas A&M, and then he slowly just like turned it on. They're fun. They got a defense. Like I feel more confident in like Marcus Freeman. Like he made Marcus Freeman. I have more confidence in Marcus Freeman than I did Brian Kelly in this situation. And I like some people might think that that's a hot take, but like I think Marcus Freeman gets these guys up. Gets these guys ready to play more than what Brian Kelly did.
He's getting considered for an NFL job right now, which I don't think he'll take the Chicago Bears. I know those rumors are out there right now, but you're right. I get a bunch of comments about Notre Dame, like the soft schedule, which is so funny because they have 4 ranked wins on their schedule, which I understand. Like NIU loss is one of those things where I don't know if you guys in high school had a curfew. Like I had a curfew in high school, and if I was late to it, my mom's like, "Hey, why are you late?" And you can't justify anything. You can't make up an excuse because it's literally on you. Like, "Hey, mom, I'm sorry. Like I missed curfew on purpose." Like you can't say anything to justify the NIU loss, but you can't tell me ever since that loss, this team has dominated who they played, and they look like a top 5 team in the country. Like Jeremiah Love, I'm excited. Hopefully he gets back from an injury. I've been saying all year, as a Notre Dame fan, like they have receivers on the outside. It was just a matter of Riley Leonard getting comfortable. He's getting more and more comfortable every week. And I think they get knocked because Riley Leonard runs the football as much as he does, but it's a strength. He's good at it. Why would you not use it? So I'm excited for him, man. I hope it snows in South Bend. I know they get a home game. To be honest, the 5 seed's the best seed to have in the playoff. Like
it is.
Yeah.
It
they
is.
need to change that.
Great advantage because
they
they don't have a conference championship, so they get a bye. They get that bye naturally anyway. Like they
do you think, Bryce, that they should be in a conference? Because to me, I'm like, why do we need to unless some crazy thing happens?
Noah's not here to defend himself, but he's always.
Oh, I know he hates Notre Dame. I love it.
He hates them, and he's always telling me that they need to join a conference too. They get so much money from NBC. They get to choose their own schedule. They have all their protected rivalries. I love it because they get to have all their rivalries. Like that's something that I think that needs to stay in college football.
Mm.
And they have no incentive to join. I know they technically play an ACC schedule. They play, I think it's 5 or 6 ACC teams every year. I think is what they signed up to do. I'd have to check on that. It would make the most sense for me to say that for them to join the Big Ten, but I don't want them to join the Big Ten. Like, stay where you're at. Like, let the college football landscape move around you. You get the 5 seed. You already get a bye. Like, I know you got to win 3 college football playoff games now instead of 2. But still, like, who cares? Like, you get a home playoff game. Like, Notre Dame's not complaining about getting a home playoff game. Like, I bet you if you ask their athletic director, like, you get a home playoff game every year if you guys have your schedule, you'd be like, yeah, sure, sign me up for it.
Yeah. My last thing about them too is they were in the ACC in COVID. They made the conference championship, I'm pretty sure, or they won it. They lost to Clemson.
They did.
What do you think about AJ? Or what do you think about Notre Dame, AJ? Not biased, actually watching them, because a lot of people criticize them just because it's Notre Dame. But if you actually watch them, USC's a good team. I get that they're 6-6, but they're still got 5-star talent everywhere.
No, I hear you. And I have nothing against Notre Dame. I really don't. I just like giving Bryce shit in the group chat about it.
Fair enough.
Objectively, I think Notre Dame is easily a top 5 team in the country right now. I mean, you can look at like you guys talked about. NIU lost, whatever. You can't really give that an excuse. But ever since then, they've turned it on, and they've been one of the best teams in the country. I personally am a college football historian. I do think it's interesting that they are the powerhouse that they are, and they aren't in a conference. I think it's interesting. I think what the college football committee needs to do is they need to somehow fix the formatting to where Notre Dame just doesn't get the 5 seed every year. Because again,
Notre Dame's on that committee. I don't know who it is.
Because the 5 seed is a really good spot. Now, people are complaining about the 5 seed being easier than a top 4 seed. It's really not. I mean, it's harder to play 4 games than it is to play 3, right? And so the fact that the first 4 teams get a bye, that is substantially easier than getting a 5 seed and then having an extra game. But no, I agree with you guys. So Notre Dame is definitely a top 5 team in the country. And I'm gonna give my 2 cents here because Groff called me out on it on TikTok. I'm like a closeted Army fan. I wouldn't say I'm a closeted Army fan. I don't really follow an FBS team. I'm a huge Montana guy, obviously. I love Army, and I've loved Army ever since Trent Steelman fumbled in the Army Navy game like 10 years ago or something like that. I've been an Army fan ever since. You guys should have seen me. I was like Rain Man trying to figure out how Army was going to beat Notre Dame. And that was the first. I think that was one of the first TikToks that I made on Barn Burner's TikTok. That didn't end that great.
Hey, you got to be bold sometime, bro. You got to be bold.
And I think I told you too. Like, hey, you're standing in the paint for long enough, you're going to get dunked on. So.
No, I mean I saw them against Navy, and I know Bryce and Daly and Army's a lot better. But I just knew like that defense, man. Like they figured it out against Navy. They knew they were going to stop them. And what's crazy too is not a lot of people know our best corners out, and one of our best pass rushers has been out for the season, Patello too. So like the fact that they're doing this with freshmen and sophomores, like as a Notre Dame fan, you got to be happy for the future with their defense.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, let's finish out these last 2 conference championship games.
We needed to have the second I forgot Groff was a big Notre Dame fan, and the second I saw we need to have a Notre Dame segment. I feel like I'm back in a safe place now.
I knew you were a good guy, Bryce. I knew you were a good guy. I knew you were a good guy.
Safe place. My God. All right, so next up, we're talking about the Big 12 championship game. We got Iowa State and Arizona State. Now, Iowa State, they had some suspect losses earlier this year. They played Texas Tech, who was a good team, but then they lost to Kansas, who has been hot lately, but when they were playing them, they weren't very good. So this is going to be interesting. We talked about the playoff implications earlier. I think Arizona State is going to end up winning this game. Part of the reason, the big X factor for me is going to be Cam Scatterbo, and I don't think I'm breaking any news there. He should be getting more national attention than he is right now. We saw, all 3 of us saw him when he was playing at Sac State. I saw him on the field when he was a young buck. The dude is a freak.
We've been known about him too. That's one thing I'm like, eager about, because I wish I would have came out with a video or something like 3 years ago saying that this guy was going to be one of the best running backs in the country. Like this guy won the Big Sky Offensive Player like 2 years in a row, and now he's finally getting all this attention, which deservedly so. But no, you're spot on, man. I mean, he's a hell of a story. We knew of him at Montana. He rushed for like 150 yards against us, 200 yards.
Too many.
Yeah, too many.
No, but so Cam Scatterbo, he almost has 2,000 scrimmage yards in the season, almost has 20 touchdowns on the season. I think Arizona State's going to win. I love Kenny Dillon. I love that guy. He is. I think he should be the favorite for Coach of the Year. I think. I mean, where was you might know, Groff. Where was Arizona State picked to finish out in the Big 12 this year?
Last.
Yeah, exactly.
16th.
Exactly.
Yeah, bro. It's unbelievable. Like being a guy that's been born and raised in Arizona, like Arizona State's always been like just the laughing stock of all, because there's so much pro sports. And the one thing about Arizona, just as a whole, is we don't have a lot of good sports teams. But when they are good, when they are winning, everyone will show up. But when you're not, no one's going to show up. So for Kenny Dillingham, like he's from Arizona. He went to Chaparral High School, which is in Scottsdale. He got hurt, got into coaching, and kind of grew up as an Arizona State fan, graduated from Arizona State. So the fact that he's coming here, and he came into like a crap show. I almost just cussed. Sorry about that. Almost just a disaster. Like, because Herm Edwards basically left it in like a bull ban, a bunch of suspensions, and just basically didn't leave anybody there. And he had to kind of like buy in all the players. They went out the transfer portal, got Sam Levitt, they got Jordan Tyson. They went out in every single press conference. You're right. Like Dan Lanning's 1 for me, but 2 is Kenny Dillingham for coaches that I would want to play for. Every press conference, you're seeing him like, hey, NIL, like pay the money, pay demand his money. Like I'm sure you guys saw that press conference, but no, man, it's been cool to see. And he's so young too. You just long term, you hope that he can stay here because money talks and the Auburns of the world, like with Hugh Freeze if he leaves or whatever happens. But for a team like this to be 16th in the adversity, like Sam Levitt, I was fortunate enough in 2022 I had a 7-on-7 job, and he's one of the first people I ever interviewed, and he was a 3-star at the time. I knew he was a good quarterback. Didn't have a lot of offers. Goes to Michigan State, transfers to Arizona State, has like no playing time. And then you just wonder throughout the season, like, could this guy mature into a good quarterback? Could he be confident in the pocket? Could he pass? Like, if Cam Scotty were to get stopped, could he win up football games? And he has. And he looks like a Bo Nix 2.0. And I think he's legit. It sucks that Jordan Tyson got hurt last week because he's their number one wide receiver. A guy that came from Colorado that got transferred out of there when Dion was there, wasn't really given an opportunity, and has just flourished as a 1,000-yard wide receiver. So that kind of worries me a little bit. But I think against Iowa State, and I'm pretty sure you'll get into it, AJ, is they're not really going to stop in the run, which for Arizona State, it's like give Cam Scotty the ball 50 times this game.
Literally.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was thinking about when I was thinking about the Iowa State Arizona State game. I was thinking to myself, how can Iowa State win this game? And I can't really give you an answer. Like Jordan Tyson being out, like that's is he out or is he just hurt?
He's out. Yeah, he had dislocated his collarbone, so he might be out for the entire rest of the season, which blows.
Yeah. So that's a huge blow. He's far and away their leading receiver. Cam Scatterbo is actually their second leading receiver on the team. A fun fact. Jordan Tyson was the only guy that had over 500 receiving yards in the season. He had 1,100. So that's a massive hit. But this is going to be the Cam Scatterbo game. Iowa State's not great against the run. This is going to be the Cam Scatterbo game. I couldn't really come up with a way that Iowa State wins this game. Honestly, I don't know if that's just me putting a lot of stock into Cam and Kenny Dillingham and the Cinderella run that Arizona State's got on this season, going through the Big 12. That's just me.
The only way I see Iowa State winning this game is it's the one weakness of ASU, which you're a Notre Dame fan. We've experienced it this season. Arizona State is 132nd in field goal percentage this year. So if it is a field goal game where they have to drive down and get a field goal, I don't like ASU's chances in that situation. 50% from field goal, which Notre Dame's 44, which I'm like stepping back. I'm like, yo, that's horrendous. First off. Second off, thank God Notre Dame hasn't had a game outside of the NIU game, which was like a 62-yarder. Texas A&M, he nailed the one to like kind of ice the win by 10. But if ASU gets in a field goal battle and a situation where they need a field goal, I don't like their chances against Iowa State if that happens.
It was Kenny Dillingham that came out and said that he was doing kicker tryouts after.
Yes.
I was just going to bring that up.
I thought that was I was like, I swear that was him. I got to echo everything you guys say. I'm on Arizona State too. I'm not going to add on anything else that Groff said. Arizona State, like you're an Arizona boy. Like that's, you get it. I'll add the fact that Cam Scatterbo is like Cooper Kupp to me, like the second coming of Cooper Kupp as being a Montana Grizzly fan is like, I hated seeing him. He always got the ball. He was always in the end zone. It felt like, sorry, AJ. Like, it was just like, can this guy just go? And then, like, when it comes to, like, looking forward in the playoff, I do not want Notre Dame close to Arizona State. Like,
you're a good team, man.
I don't want Cam Scatterbo playing any of my teams. I'm like, no, I've seen enough of you, man. Like, when it comes down to it, Arizona State's just been on a roll, though. Iowa State, this is the first time they've won 10 games in their entire program history. It's a big enough step for Iowa State. We were on them earlier in the year, AJ. We talked about, they had a bunch of returning starters from last year. They lost a bunch of one-score games last year. Like, the tide was eventually going to turn their way, and you saw that in a few games this year. They lost to Kansas, and like Kansas was just hot there for a few weeks. Like, you couldn't blame like anybody for losing to Kansas because frankly everyone was going to lose to Kansas during like that 3-week stretch. Like, they were truly playing like the best team in the country for that span.
I saw a comment on one of my videos. It was like, "Can we see a bowl game with Kansas versus Florida?" And I was like, "Hey, that'd be
Yeah,
two
dude,
hottest teams in
be
the
down.
country.
I'd be down. But for real, it's gonna be. I think it was at the Mississippi State game where it was pretty much just give the ball to Cam Scatterbo and get the hell out of the way. Like that's how I see this game. Like how this game's gonna go. Because I don't think Iowa State's gonna stop them. Like how you guys have said. Like I don't see. I don't see it.
So Groff, answer me this. You're in Arizona, obviously. What's the community feel about this team and what they've done this year?
Oh, dude, it's unreal. I mean, now you see ASU everywhere. Like you see ASU flags, you see ASU fans in all the sports bars. Like I'm right by Old Town Scottsdale. Like on Saturday, it's going to be packed with ASU fans. Like the game against BYU with the double field storming. Like it was one of the sold out crowd. They haven't had a sold out game like that, I think, since like a year and a half or so. And they haven't had a big game like that since Notre Dame came to ASU and lost to ASU. Like that's like what the city is right now. I think they're starting to buy in. I don't blame NIL people. I don't blame fans of Arizona State because you're just not used to like you don't know if this is fake that they're winning all these games. You didn't expect this heading into the season. So why would I put my money in something that I'm not for sure on that I don't trust yet? But what he's building there, I think, is something for the long term. And Arizona State, I think they're going to win this football game. It's so funny how this game is also sponsored by WWE, which is the Undertaker is going to be there. So like the Undertaker with Cam Scatterbo at the end would just be probably the best photo in college football. Like, come on,
literally. And you know what? This is the last thing I'll say about this game and Kelly Dillingham specifically. I love, like you talked about how he was a younger coach. I love the fact that he is one of the guys that we don't have to worry about that just bitch and moan about how crappy college football has become with NIL and recruiting. He is the guy that has completely and totally embraced it. He's a younger guy, so he understands the ramifications of what these kids have to go through now. I say kids, I'm a year out, whatever. But but I love that I love that he is going into press conferences saying, please invest in our NIL collective. He's wearing the NIL collective merch during press conferences. He's connecting with these guys. It's a different breed of head coach that we're seeing now. We're seeing the old school coaches starting to filter out those who don't want to be head coaches anymore, but still want to coach. They're starting to become offensive coordinators. We saw that happen with Chip Kelly when he left UCLA to go to Ohio State because he just wanted to coach. He wanted to do his job. He didn't want to have to worry about the politics of college football being a head coach anymore. But I think Kenny Dillingham has been a guy that has been that has embraced that. So I respect him for that.
Even your boy Gus Malzahn just this week, he left for
Florida. Gus Malzahn too.
Yeah,
same thing.
Yeah. Did you guys know that Hines Ward's the receiver coach here at ASU? Isn't that pretty sick?
No. What?
Yeah, Hines Ward. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Super under the radar. Like he got hired like last minute, I think, like 2 weeks before week one. It's pretty insane. Yeah, it's pretty insane for Hines Ward to be the receiver coach here. Like that's one thing about ASU is like they've got super under like Charlie Regal is one of the assistant coaches. He was a longtime head coach at Idaho State. They had a bunch of former high school coaches from around the state in Arizona too. So I think their staff and the fact that they re-signed their OC and DC, like that's also been a big thing that's helped with their success.
Yes. Just going back to that double field storming, awesome scene. It was watching on television. It was insane. One of those things where it's like I was glad that I had it on just because it was.
Dillingham just overthought it. Like, why not score a touchdown, be up 12 with 40 seconds left? You're going to win the game. Yeah. And you see it running backwards. You're like, wait, what the hell is going on? And there's 12 seconds left. Of course, they blitz. Like, of course, you're going to blitz on fourth down with 12 seconds left. Dillingham yelling at his wife. You're right. The whole thing was crazy. I was just, man, I can't believe they let that happen. It took him like 12 minutes to get off the field. Jeez.
That was insane.
For one play, and then the start begin.
Yeah. Stupid.
All right. Last game we're going to talk about. Then we're going to talk briefly about some Heisman conversations here. All right. So last thing, we got the ACC title game. We got Clemson versus SMU. Again, we talked about the playoff implications already. This is going to be a pseudo playoff game for Clemson. If Clemson wins, they're in. That's the deal. If SMU wins, I think they're still in, but it's an uncomfortable conversation for them. All right. But if Clemson wins, they're in. I think that's enough for Dabo Swinney and the boys. What do you guys think?
I'll go first here. I'll take a stab at this first.
You got it.
Because frankly, we had a pod that lasted about a conversation about Dabo Swinney for about 30 minutes, it felt like. We talked about Dabo at the beginning of the year, and I said some pretty inflammatory things because kind of in the moment said that Dabo would probably get fired. Frankly, I'm just gonna say he hasn't had another great year. I know that they're this is Clemson's supposed to be at the top of the ACC. And they lost to Louisville and they lost to a South Carolina team last week that they should have beat.
I mean, they were a Miami win away from not being in this conversation at all.
Yeah.
They should be thanking Syracuse. Like,
did you guys see Syracuse's head coach at the end of the game? Dabo, you're welcome.
Yeah, dude, he's sick, bro. They've had an underrated year. 9-3, I think 8-3. They're about to be 9-3 with the bull win. Like they had a crazy turnaround this season.
But
they did. They really did.
Dabo, they got absolutely boat raced by Georgia at the beginning of the year, which, looking back, Georgia's good, very good, but they didn't have a pulse that game. And going back to my beloved SMU Mustangs, AJ and I, we were back in mid-August. I told AJ, take over 8.5 on SMU.
Wow.
He did.
Yep. He really over 8.5 on SMU. And I thought it was going to be Peyton Stone. I loved Peyton Stone. I didn't know that was not going to work out. But we'll roll with whatever we got. I still believed in the team as a whole. The prediction was still right, regardless of who we were rolling with. And even when we were talking about the ACC preview, I told Noah and you guys, SMU, they don't have that bad of a schedule. They can sneak in to this ACC championship. And they've played very well, down the stretch. They should have lost to Duke. That was a close game, and I do not know for the life of me what Duke was doing at the end of that overtime. But still, they're here, and they're a good team. And I'm a homer for them this year. They got me my money. I'm good. I don't need to cheer for them anymore. But I don't like Dabo. That's on me. He doesn't need to have. He doesn't need to lose his job. But we were talking about Kenny Dillingham. He's the opposite of Kenny Dillingham, has not embraced it. He's embraced NIL in a way, hasn't embraced the transfer portal. And I think that's what rubs me the wrong way when I see guys like Kenny Dillingham and then I compare him to Dabo. And that's where
I'm looking at Clemson's schedule right now. Every ranked team, at this point, they have lost every time they have going up against a currently ranked team. They lost against, we talked about the drubbing it with Georgia already. And then they just lost to South Carolina 17-14, who is also pretty pissed off that they're not in playoff contention right now. Now that's a whole other conversation. But I don't think anyone thinks South Carolina should be in the playoff right now. I think they're pretty perfectly ranked right now where they are at 15.
They're hot. They're hot. They're a great team. Based on if it was who's the hottest team right now, I'd put them in. But you can't tell me head to head is my number one. You can't lose to Ole Miss and you can't lose to Alabama and expect to jump them. I'm sorry.
Exactly. You can't do that. But back to what I was saying, Clemson has not beat a ranked team so far this season. They played Georgia at the beginning of the season. They lost. They played South Carolina at the end of the season. They lost. SMU has been playing very well, especially this is another quarterback change. The quarterback change that you alluded to, Bryce. We're going from Peyton Stone to Kevin Jennings. Kevin Jennings has been awesome. He's a true dual threat quarterback, and especially with Rhett Lashley being the great offensive mind that he is down there in Dallas, he's going to put his guys in the position to make plays. Kevin Jennings has been awesome. I think when I was looking it up earlier, I think he leads the ACC in yards per pass attempt. He is highly efficient. When he throws the ball, it's a deep bomb, and that's what they do. They run the ball, and they sprinkle in play action at the top off the defense. It's awesome. It's a great offense to look at if you're a scheme guru.
I'll turn it over to Groff just after this comment here. If you would have told people in Texas 10 years ago that SMU would be battling for a national championship, technically before Texas A&M, do you think that they would have thought you were crazy?
And the ACC title game?
Yeah.
Add that fold into it as well. You know what I mean? SMU's been dead for years.
years.
Like the program as a whole, like it's been like pretty dormant, and it's cool to see for college football.
I think they were one of the first schools to move to the ACC too. Like when the whole Real Hyman thing was happening, they were like, "Oh, hey, we got $50 million. We're going to move to the ACC." And you're like, "Wait, what? Like this team won 8 games in the AAC, and then next thing you know, they're 11-1 in the ACC their first year." Like I wonder how many people are going to show up for this game because they got money. Everyone at SMU has got money. So you wonder how they're going to show out in North Carolina, but you guys pretty much touched on everything. It makes me mad with Clemson just because I think Cade Klubnik is getting better, but it's like their wide receivers he throw into are freshmen and sophomores, and it's like I get you don't like the transfer portal, but if they could have just got 1 or 2 transfer wide receivers, I think this team would look completely different. Because I think that's the biggest thing against South Carolina, which they lost, was they couldn't sustain drives, and that defensive line gave Clemson havoc. Which, fun fact, SMU is one of the top pressure rates in the country, which I didn't know. I'm not going to lie. I haven't really watched a whole lot of SMU, so I'm excited to see them in a primetime game. I think this is the same situation. I think they're the ACC's Indiana, where it's like, for me, I want to see them prove it against a ranked opponent. I get 9-3 Clemson. We all know it. Clemson, big brand. Like, I want to see SMU go out there and win or lose close games. I think they're like the ACC's Indiana. It'll be fun to watch, man. And in a primetime moment. And if you would have told me that Jennings would bring him to this, not Stone, which Kirk Herbstreit before the season had his like Herbie Awards, and he had like his top 4 quarterbacks. Preston Stone was on that list, and he didn't start past week 3, week 2. It's crazy.
It was the BYU game that they lost, so I think that they started holding it against Nevada against Choate is when they started pulling Preston Stone, and I was like, oh, like that's when I started sweating it. I was like,
you're like SMU's a dark horse to win the ACC after that.
And I see them struggling against Nevada, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is funny. Terrible. Like I didn't even last 1 game. Like we're week 0.
I was getting weekly updates through about week 3 from Bryce talking about his SMU pick because he was pounding the table about SMU being a contender this year. Bryce, congratulations, you made it.
Thank you. Hey, like looking back, I ended up getting a couple right. Like Rutgers hit too. Like I had a Rutgers over 6.5. Like I was like, who else did I have? Bowling Green. I had Bowling Green over 6.5. Damn. So
you're in the books, bro. Jeez.
I know. You had Bama over 9.5, and the one
that was close.
I don't mean to keep bringing
App
up
State was bad. App State was bad.
Yeah, that was the only other bad one. Sorry.
Remember they were considered for like a group of 5 bid? Remember that? They were considered. It was like it was Boise.
Utah going to the playoffs too, and I think Utah would have been different if Cam Rising could stay healthy, but I don't know why I'm trusting a geriatric at quarterback at this point. So
yeah, I think we all miss on the Big 12. I had Utah. You're right, Kansas, Oklahoma State, all the production coming back. Like,
I mean, again, before the season started, me and Bryce, again, we were talking about the Big 12 being the funnest conference to watch this year. Ended up happening. There was a lot of parity. We couldn't really figure out who was going to be the guy, who was going to be the team coming out of it. So,
like for hell's sake, who thought that BYU out of nowhere was just going to fly up, just like
with a Jewish quarterback?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, shoot. All right, boys, we've been talking for almost 2 hours here. We're going to do one more thing. We're going to dive into Heisman talk. We're gonna act like we have Heisman votes. All right. Now, for me, at least, I think this is true for everybody. But one thing I like to point out when talking about the Heisman, and it's nice to have a true Heisman race where we really don't know who's going to end up winning at the end of the year. And then 2, it's especially nice when neither are quarterbacks. That's really nice. For a while, it felt like it was just the award was going to go to the best quarterback on the best team, and that's who was going to be the Heisman Trophy winner. It is different now. We've been talking about it all year. It's Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter. So what I want to hear is your guys' arguments for Ashton Jeanty to win the Heisman. We're going to transition over to Travis Hunter here in a second, but first we're going to talk about Ashton Jeanty. For me, he has done something that has not been done since Barry Sanders. And when you are in the same breath, let alone the same paragraph as Barry Sanders, you are on a generational run. I do. And regardless of how many players you stack into the box, he has been productive. He leads the nation in rushing. Ashton Jeanty, after contact, leads the nation in rushing. He almost has 30. He's going to end up with 30 touchdowns by the end of the season. By the end of this weekend, he's going to end with 30 touchdowns. We'll get to it later, but that's my argument for Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah,
Bryce, what do you got? Or Jackson, let's go.
Sorry. Yeah. For me, so I don't think Ashton Jeanty should win the Heisman, but if I were to be a voter of Ashton Jeanty, everything you said is correct. It's generational. Like for him, like the story-wise, for him to do this at a Group of 5 school is pretty unique. And the fact that he's been in the Heisman conversation for so long too, and you're right, like it's been dope for the quarterbacks up and down because of just how widespread college football is. Like you can't base it off of winning. I know Cam Ward was up there. Then they lost to Georgia Tech. He kind of gets knocked out. So it's nice to have that refresher. And I think to that point with them being a potential playoff run, like that goes into factor and the impact that he's had on them as well. I do think this race, just as a whole, is closer than the sports books think. I think Travis is like minus 10,000 to win and Ashton's is like plus 2,000. I think it's a lot closer than that. I would say like minus 150 for Travis and maybe like plus 200 for Ashton, like just out of respect for Ashton Jeanty. But you're right. I mean, to be in the conversation of a guy like Barry Sanders and the fact that he keeps running and we all look at his stats and we're like, damn, he only rushed for 126 yards. Like that's a normal game for him. So yeah, you're right. You're spot on. Like this is generational stuff for Ashton Jeanty. Bryce, what you got?
We're going with picks, right? I'm going to go out there, say I'm going with Jeanty. Little bias here. I love watching Jeanty. Part of my vote, I love watching him play. Like you guys have already brought up stats, everything. I want the Heisman vote to value G5 play, so those G5 players value staying at the Group of 5, and they don't feel like they have to move to the Power 4 in order to get that recognition. Kind of a different take, I understand, but he's done remarkable stuff this year, and for him not to be, he is getting recognized for sure, but like it is a Heisman worthy. Like this would be a year where like I like to say to give out 2 Heismans would be kind of a cop out, but like this would be one of like some years like we like some years some Heismans it's like this year it's like these 2 deserve it. I love Jeanty. I think what he's done is great. It's hard to go against Travis Hunter, but at the end of the day, like I gotta go with Jeanty. So,
all right, sweet. All right, now we're gonna transition. Now we're gonna start with you, Jax. Is you said your vote was gonna be Travis Hunter. Let's hear why.
I just think this dude, man. You mentioned Barry Sanders. We haven't seen someone play both ways since Charles Woodson, and I don't think he played this many snaps at Michigan.
No, he didn't.
I just find it impressive him being the wide receiver 1. And going up and guarding the number 1 wide receiver on the other side. And it's so funny, I saw a stat where it's like, well, his tackles, you only got like 20 tackles this season. And Deion was like, well, if you're tackling, if you're leading the team in tackling, that means you're getting burned every play and you're tackling the wide receiver. So I don't have an issue with that. I think part of it has to do with his influence is why he's getting more attention and why he's favored more than Jeanty. Just what he does. He's a great person. The more primetime games of Colorado, just the Colorado brand and Deion. I think people want, Travis Hunter to represent the Heisman Trophy over Ashton Jeanty with the ties of Deion, the Colorado story and stuff like that. But I just think what his production, man, on the field, just at the wide receiver position and as a DB, and the fact that he plays that many snaps every game and just keeps going. Like, I think for me, and I get like, people are saying that they pad the stats of Colorado and Travis Hunter and keep him in longer and get him more catches, and maybe deservedly so. But like his impact with Colorado is like just the same as impact as Ashton Jeanty is with Boise State, in my opinion. And they give the ball to him 40, 50 times a game, which again, it's Ashton Jeanty. You probably got to give him that much in order to win football games. But you could argue like, okay, we're the Heisman campaign was at the beginning of the season for Ashton Jeanty. You knew they were going to give him the ball 40, 50 times every single game. So for me, I'm going Travis Hunter. I think he should win the Heisman, and I think it's deservedly so.
So let me ask you this: Do you think the fact that Deion is the head coach and the emphasis that Deion in Colorado has put on marketing Travis Hunter, do you think that has any impact on the way that people look at him? And do you think it would be similar, or do you think it would be the same way if the situations were reversed, where a guy like Deion Sanders and a brand like Colorado were going to pump up a guy like Ashton Genty? Do you think that would be similar? Do you think that's a primary, not a primary reason why, but do you think that's the last supercharge in the Travis Hunter campaign?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely I think that plays in the factors of it. I think also too, like Travis Hunter having big plays and big moments in primetime games, like the Baylor game where he had that big hit and caused the fumble. He's had some
Mm-hmm.
great catches. He had some crucial interceptions as well too. But no, I think you're full on. You're straight with it, and you could say like, yeah, it's a little biased. Like they should probably do a better job of not focusing too much on the marketing. But I mean, we're all on social media like 24/7. Like it's kind of hard not to consider Travis Hunter or be for him or be for him for the Heisman when you see it all the time. You see him strike the Heisman pose. And let's be honest, like all plays in a factor. Like Colorado plays in the primetime games. Boise State usually plays way at night. And I get a group of five. Like I want to see a group of five team win, but like we also got to put in consideration, like he's playing Hawaii, he's playing Wyoming, he's playing Utah State. Like these aren't the same. He would have probably similar numbers in the Big 12, but I don't know. I think marketing definitely plays an effect, and yeah, that's my stance on that. So.
I think going back to the marketing, like looks great for Dion too, because if I'm a future recruit, like Dion has done nothing but prop up Travis Hunter and Shador all because I mean if it wasn't for Travis, like Shador would be up there right now too, because ultimately throwing the ball to Travis. And he's done nothing but prop up those two. Like you saw on social media this week, like he's sending flyers, like they're sending informational flyers.
That's what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Like that's the stuff that like I don't know, like I wasn't in like a big time recruiting process for college football. But like like AJ, like that's something I think that I would value. Like this coach is gonna go to bat for me if it comes to like me winning awards for, All American, position awards, stuff like that. Like I think that's gonna pay off dividends down the line too, as well for Dion. So
Yeah. Fun fact: I just looked up some stats. Did you guys know that if the season ended today, that Shador Sanders would have the career record for all time completion percentage?
he's good.
Really, wow.
He's at he was at 60. Where's it at? Come on.
Was
Oh my
was
gosh,
Bo
where's that?
Nix,
There you
Mac
go.
Jones? Was that one season when Bo Nix
That's
broke
single
that
season.
record? Single season.
Single season.
Okay, gotcha.
Single season. Yeah, because Shador had 69% last year, nice, and then he was at 74% this year, which leads the country, by the way. So if the season ended today, he would have the all time record for career completion percentage. That's pretty cool, especially when you're throwing the ball down the field as much as he is. I mean, he almost has 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns on the year. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. So for me, when it comes to the Travis Hunter campaign, Jackson, I'm 100% with you. We will likely never see a player do this ever again. Like when you're a true two-way starter in college football, that is impossible. That's why no one has really ever done it. Charles Woodson didn't do it. He had credit for playing a couple snaps at wide receiver. He returned kicks, and he was primarily a defensive player. Travis Hunter is literally the number one receiver on the team, and he guards the number one receiver on defense. However, the way I think about it, what is Travis Hunter's worst game this year? And then what is Ashton Genty's worst game this year? That's the way I think about it. I think Travis Hunter's worst game this year, I think he had 20 yards as a receiver. You can, and I'd have to break down the film for him as a corner because, again, the corner is not a stat position unless you're catching a bunch of interceptions. And even then, you're getting thrown the ball to a ton if you're catching a lot of interceptions. So that doesn't make sense. I'd have to break down the film on that. But for me, Ashton Genty's worst game is any other running back's career high. That's what makes the difference for me. Yes, we can talk about the level of competition, but level of competition, we've seen that Ashton Genty did it against the number one team in the country. He almost had 200 yards and 2 touchdowns against the number one team in the country. So for me, Ashton Genty has done it every week. And I'm not a huge fan of while impressive, I'm not a huge fan of using snap counts as a means of as a as a true representation of the impact that you have as a player, even though we all know he has a great impact on the player. So that's my reasoning. That's why if I was a Heisman voter, I would vote Ashton Jeanty number 1. I would vote Travis Hunter number 2. That's what I would do.
No, that's fair. I mean, I think it's a closer competition than what it is. I agree with you. I think Ashton Jeanty should definitely, and it's one of those things where it's like you argue about Travis Hunter, you argue about Ashton Jeanty, and I'm not gonna like sit here and like debate with you and scream at you that it should be the other person. I do think I think what it comes down to, and the reason why Travis is gonna win it is because of branding and marketing. I think it's why. And I think I think most of these Heisman voters too don't really watch as much football. Like even the AP voters too. Like they don't watch as much football week to week, weekend as probably us do. Just 24, 25-year-olds diehard watching the football, which is what you should be as an AP or Heisman voter.
Yes.
That's why I think people are going to go towards, oh, what do the sports books say? Or, oh, what does social media think? Like, oh, I'm seeing Travis Hunter on my phone all the time. Like, you're more prone to watch Colorado right now than you are Boise State. And that's just facts.
Yeah.
And you're so spot on. Boise State played in such miserable time slots all year.
Yeah.
Miserable.
Like, particularly the East Coast, like, I'm biased because I think the Mountain Time Zone is like one of the best time zones to be in for when it comes to watching, because you do get like both ends of the spectrum where you can watch Pacific and you can watch the Eastern. But for those Eastern time zone voters, like there is no way that they're staying up for those late kickoffs. And that just ended up hurting him when like Colorado's on Big Noon kick. It felt like almost every week. It was either them or Ohio State. It almost felt like.
And then they'll play at night, but they'll play like a Friday night game, or they'll have like a big time matchup where it's like at 8:30, like Kansas State, a ranked game. Which, no offense, like Boise State, they're playing, I think, like what, Utah State or Kansas State, Colorado. You're gonna watch that game over them too. So yeah.
So I'm gonna end this conversation with trivia. Besides Caleb Williams, what was the last year a player on the West Coast won the Heisman Trophy? Besides Caleb Williams 2 years ago.
The latest one, you said? The last one?
The last one.
Dude, I have some in mind, but I think I might be going too far. Shoot.
On the West Coast.
On the West Coast.
Marcus Mariota?
Oh, that's a good guess.
Yep.
That's a good guess.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
That's a good guess. Good job, man.
I was gonna say
Reggie Bush, but
that's what I was gonna say Reggie Bush or Leinart, but that was a good guess, man. Damn, Mariota, man.
That's good.
This was the year that he lost Ohio State.
Correct.
So who do you guys think should be the other finalists?
It's been 10 years minus Caleb Williams, obviously.
Who do you guys think should be the other finalists for the Heisman?
That's the other question. I think that's the more interesting question. I think Dylan Gabriel is probably going to end up third.
Yep. And for Jackson Wildhelm, our lovely house cat listening to this, Will Howard should not be in the conversation. I just got to throw that in. I'm so sick of that. Will Howard does not need to be in the conversation. I do not want to hear about that literally anymore the rest of the year. But it's got to be Dylan. I think it's got to be Dylan Gabriel. I think Ward had like the way that he ended. Like I know it wasn't completely on him, but like they're gonna look at how Miami ended, and it's gonna be like so.
I think it's 4 finalists. Isn't it 4?
I think it's dependent on how many votes you get. So sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 5. I have a feeling it's probably going to end up being 3 this year because there's it's so top heavy with Jeanty and Travis Hunter, and then they'll probably have Dylan Gabriel in there as well. The 4th slot would probably be Ward.
I want to see Cam Scatterbo, man, as the 4th. Just that'd be so cool.
You know what? He might end up being top 10 in the voting. You know who I really want to see in the top 10 voting?
Bryce and David.
Heisman. Hell yeah, man.
Curtis Rourke. Yeah.
If I see Will Howard in New York, I'm going to riot. I'm going to riot.
Going. He's not going.
No, he won't go. Especially after Michigan, he's not going. No way.
No. All right, boys. We've been talking for 2 hours. Jackson, I can't tell you how thankful I am for you coming on to this. Obviously, we're getting into the meat of the college football postseason. So if you would, I would love to have you back on again next week, going throughout the postseason.
Hey, whenever you need me, bro, I got you, bro. It's been fun talking ball with you guys. Sorry if I rambled forever. Dude, the sport is amazing. We're just getting started. Like the college ball playoff, I'm excited, man. I'm looking for chaos this weekend, but at the same time, like I just kind of want it to go easy chalk. Let's get some good matchups. Man, the home field playoff games are going to be outstanding. But nah, it's been fun with you guys, man. I just looked at the clock. I'm like, man, 2 hours. I feel like we've been talking for like 10 minutes, man.
I agree. I agree.
Hey, real
Time
quick,
flies when you're having fun, brother.
What'd you say?
Real quick, who do we got in the FCS playoffs?
Oh, jeez. Montana by a million, baby.
No.
You
I
can
thought
turn it
Montana could score, man.
I do too.
You can turn it
I
off.
don't know.
It doesn't have to be on the record.
Oh, Jesus. No, I mean, I'm rooting for Montana. Obviously, I'm rooting for Montana. I think we all are. But like I said earlier, I'm going to try to go up to the game because it's a 1 o'clock kickoff in South Dakota. It's 2.5 hours away. It's going to be like 40 degrees. I'll put a couple layers on and I'll be fine. If it was like -20, like it was last year, I would be more than happy to sit in the comfort of my own home watching that. But since it's so close, it's going to be relatively nice out for a Midwest December Saturday. I'll probably end up out there. But FCS playoffs are heating up. We can go on for another hour talking about that, but
dude, I don't want the Cats to win, dude. I know they probably might.
Hell no.
They'll make the national championship. I think they'll lose to one of the Dakota schools.
Dude, their starting center, Cole Saint, we graduated the same year out of high school. Like, he's still playing. Like, it's like his 7th year. It's crazy.
Yep. He was because Justice Perkins, their original starting center, I don't know what happened to him, but he got hurt earlier this season, and the last time he played was the rivalry game, and he went in for like the last 2 snaps for some reason. I don't know what happened to him, but yeah, I don't know. I hate the Cats. Boo Bozeman.
It'll be interesting
FTC, all of it.
When they get their quarterback back and Idaho can actually go back up there, because I'm assuming it'll be Idaho. Idaho will go back up there with an actual healthy quarterback. I'll be interested to kind of see what goes on. Because
who's gonna start at quarterback for Montana?
Jesus. So, I'm sorry, AJ. He looked like not great last week.
He looked bad.
He looked very bad.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to pin one game on the guy. You know, I mean, throughout the whole season, the narrative has been, why isn't Logan Fife starting? Why isn't Logan Fife starting? So I'm not going to pin one game on the guy. I wish he had been better last week. I think all of us would have felt a lot better about the game. I mean, I stayed up till like 1 a.m. watching that game, and I was about to have a heart attack.
I was like, how is this a game? I was just like, the whole time, I'm like, how is Tennessee State with their Goodwill cheap-ass uniforms coming into Montana? Like, their kicker, the build on their kicker, too, I was like, oh, my God.
He was a unit, man.
Oh, my God.
You guys weren't even in the stadium, and I was freezing my ass off, and I was like, maybe I might leave. Like, if we get up, like, 36-6, like, I'm not hanging around. Like, I'll go back home warm. No.
Nope.
Of course that has to happen. I'm like, God, like if that does not describe how this year has been for us, like if I can encapsulate like 2 quarters for us and be like, this is who like we are, like this is our season this year, like these roller coasters, like that's us, like all over the place.
Whenever you fumble and lose 3 times, I mean that your chances, especially where we fumbled. Where we fumbled was probably more important than the fact that we fumbled.
My goodness. It was cool to see Eddie George on the sideline, though. Like, going to Griffith all my life, it was cool to see him on the sideline. And seeing Brandon Fisher back, like, I grew up watching Brandon Fisher. He was, like, one of my, like, guys I kept close to my heart, like, as a young Grizzly. Like, it was cool seeing him back on the sideline. Like, oh, loved it.
Yeah, I agree with you guys, though. I think Fife's got to be, I mean, the wide receiver position, like obviously Eli Gilman, which is weird how they don't use him as much recently. They subbed a bunch of running backs, and he didn't get a bunch of carries against Tennessee State. But outside of that, like you got to find a way.
Fun fact: career high carries for him, by the way, is 20. That he hit that last Saturday.
Eli did.
It's insane.
20? That's his high.
20. That's his high.
Oh, I thought it was like 30 or like 25 or something. That's crazy.
No, his previous was 19.
Wow.
I know AJ, you
Yeah.
don't love it when I'm in the group chat, but like sometimes I'm like respectfully, we don't use him enough, and I'm like I'm shocked. Like when it starts working for us, I'm like, who would have thought? Who would have thought that this is how this works?
They're so
Or
deep though.
we give Junior
We
the
are.
ball.
I know this offense is. I mean, you look at the skill players on the team. There's only one ball. I mean, that's a total cop out. But
Yeah,
geez,
I
like,
love that little 7 kid. He's fun to watch,
Oh, he's
man.
dude,
good.
he's
He's
gonna be
fun to
good.
watch. He's fun to
Finoti,
watch.
yeah, he's gonna be good, dude.
He's fun to
Uh,
watch.
he ran for like 200 yards and a half against Morehead State.
Yeah. And that's when he was there, when I watched him in Morehead State the second half, I was like, oh, like, I wonder who this kid is. He churns his feet. He does not
Mm-hmm.
stop. He does
If
not.
he's got hands, do you think they'll put him in the slot at all, or do you think they'll just keep him at
Probably
running
not.
back? Because
Probably not.
dude, there's so many running backs. It's like Gilman. What is he
Well,
a
so
sophomore right now, or is he a junior?
redshirt
Redshirt. Oh, he's a
Sophomore.
redshirt sophomore.
Yeah.
Redshirt sophomore. Redshirt sophomore. So Nick is out. Nick is out after this year, and then so it'd be Eli and Finoti and Stevie Rocker. Those are the three. I think because X moved to slot, which he's another guy we need to get the ball more too. Find a way to get X the ball besides just jet sweeps and
Facts.
They do that
and little
once a
screens.
game. It works still, but it's like the most predictable thing. At some point, like
I looked at the stats. He averages like 20 yards a touch.
Yeah.
A touch.
You think
Anyway.
you think South Dakota State's going to kick it to junior or no? Like when are we going to learn? Like would they keep kicking to him? No,
Would you?
no, hell no, hell no, hell no. No, it's so funny with him. So funny with him because I remember the day when Coach Peace like he talked to me in person, was like, "Yeah, we got this guy Junior Bergen. Like he decommitted from Montana State. He's coming here," and I was like, "Okay, like top recruit of Montana." And then that year he plays against Washington. He plays running back, and then now he's just a legend of Montana. Like it's cool to see, man. I'm excited. I hope he gets a chance in the league because that dude with special teams, man. I hope he gets a shot somewhere for sure. With the new kickoff too, like he would kill the hybrid kickoff
because it's basically a punt return now. So
yeah,
I mean, and look at the mold of Big Sky returners going into the NFL. We have Rashid Shaheed in the NFL right now. He went into the league as a return specialist. He's evolved into a deep play threat. I'm surprised Malik. Like I mean, I love that guy. I mean,
he's working still, but I think he'll get another chance. But you're right. He should be in the league for sure.
And like the amount of like all-star kick returns that Montana has had over the last decade. I mean, you got Jerry Louis McGee.
Jerry Louis been forgotten about all of this. I thought about that the other day.
He's probably the most underrated Grizzly, I think. And when I was there, maybe all time, dude, that dude was phenomenal. That dude in the slot, you could not go. 3rd and 5, 4th and 2, game on the line, you could throw it to him. You could throw it to Junior. You could throw it to him, Jerry.
3rd and Jerry.
Yeah, 3rd and Jerry, when they yelled his name for punt returns, you're like, man, who's going to replace him? And then Gabe got some reps there, and then I think like Keelan did, and then Junior came. And I was like, all right, here we go.
There you go.
I was going to ask you this, AJ. I haven't chatted with you in a while. That's on me. But I was thinking with the amount of good running backs we've had, like even going back to Marcus Knight, is Justin Green not one of the most underrated coaches that we have on this staff? Or like,
dude,
that's a good point.
Because part of it has to be him.
Dude, I love that man to death. And I was on the pod the other day with the Montana guys, and it was we started talking about our running back core right now. And as I was explaining to him about the different running styles that all of them had, I talked about Coach Green, and Coach Green, I love that man to death. Like if you ever get a chance to have Coach Green in your life, if you ever get a chance to have Coach Green in your life is substantially better because of it. I love that man. But it's a testament to him with how good our running backs are, because not only does he work well with the offensive line coach, like when I was there, him and German would always be talking to each other. Coach Green made sure that the running backs knew what we were responsible for so that he can make his backs better. And if you watch a Montana running back, all of them kind of they're very patient behind the line. Like I talked about it on the other pod with Nick. especially, he is slow to, fast through. And that's what you see the exact same thing. You saw the same exact thing with Eli when he ripped off that 59-yard touchdown, right? It was patient, back, bend it back, hit the hole. So I love that guy.
It's crazy how he's the only coach left from that stick crew. You think about it, because
Yes.
Shan was still around, Germer, but Germer left. Shan left for that better job. I think he's still the head coach at Mary, right?
He is. I think he's
Yeah. So that's a testament to him, man, for staying.
I have
for
no idea how he's still here because it wouldn't take long to see how many good running backs we've like pushed out for some other school to be like, hey, like, and I know he's like,
I feel like he likes it here. I feel like he's not going to leave.
Yeah. But like the fact that he hasn't gotten promoted within our program, like for one, I love him. Like working in the athletic department too, like he was one of my favorite coaches that came to the office, like stuff like that. Like I think about that all the time, and it came up the other day when like I saw Finoti, and I was like, he did it again. Like he's like just like we're gonna have another All-American running back, and like at one point it's just gonna be like, yeah, like it's Justin Green, because that's the only thing that's been in common between like Marcus Knight, Eli Gilman, Nick Osmo, like you know what I mean? Like
he's a good recruiter too.
Yeah,
really good recruiter.
I was just gonna say, there's a reason he's in charge of recruiting. I mean,
mhm.
again, like he, besides Germer and Hauk, I spent the most time with Coach Green. It's because I enjoyed being around him. You know, like it was like we didn't like I would go into his office and we just didn't have to talk football. We just talked about life. And the same thing went with Germer and Hauk, but I was around them a lot because Germer was a position coach, and then Hauk was the head coach. Obviously, Germer's my guy, though. I mean, I'll ride or die with that man. But Green is in the same mold. He's the oh, my cat just scared me. Jeez. She's telling me to get off is what she's doing.
That's
but
funny.
No, I love Coach Green. He's awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, I was wanting to ask that. I thought about that the other day, and I was like, son of a bitch.
No, that's a good discussion.
Like, like he's the only like common denominator though when you think about all those running backs. So,
yeah, no, I agree. All right, boys,
good stuff.
Now it's been over 2 hours. No, again, man, Groff, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on, man.
Bro, this was fun, man. I want to come on the pod. Big fan. Love listening to the boys just talking ball, man. It's just fun, dude. It's great sport. Yeah. It's good for all of us to come together and just talk ball. But no, I'm excited, man. We're just getting started, man. Postseason has begun, boys.
Yes, sir. Now, everyone, I'm going to link all of Groff's stuff down below. Please go check him out. His TikTok. You're still doing YouTube, right?
Yeah, still doing YouTube. We're gonna get her back up again.
Because I see that pod that you do with the other guy talking about college football every week. Go check out all the stuff. I'll have it linked down below. Love you guys. We're gonna have a great championship weekend. We'll see y'all next week.